everybody, Rosematter here. Before I tackle episode 2 of Umineko, I thought it would be fun to go over my thoughts, feelings, and theories for episode 1. It felt like I was given a lot of information, and at the same time not nearly enough to solve the many mysteries presented, but I will try my best to give you my ideas so far. First, I have to say I am already in love with the game. Like Higurashi, it was a slow start, but once it started to pick up, I was totally hooked. But even more so than Higurashi, I was taken in by the characters in Umineko pretty much immediately. Something I think episode 1 does very well is how it introduces the cast. Even before anyone has died, these characters all have, well, character. They have complex personalities, relationships, and motivations, and I'm already invested in finding out what secrets they may be hiding, as well as what happens to them next. Of the cast, I think the standouts for me right now are Badler, Natsui, and Maria. First, Badler is just a great protagonist. He reminds me of an older Keiichi, someone who can be a little hot-headed and shows his emotions easily, but is also caring, compassionate, and has a penchant for grand speeches. I like that he's a well-rounded character too. Other characters comment on his physicality, how strong and athletic he is, but instead of making him a stereotypical all brawn, no brains, Badler shows a lot of critical thinking skills, constantly flipping the chessboard and refusing to take things at face value. Other than some of his problematic remarks towards his female cousins at the beginning of the chapter, I have nothing negative to say about Badler, and the fact he's voiced by Akasaka's voice actor is a nice bonus. As for Natsui, I liked how she was presented as this frail, cold, and somewhat overly strict mother who is being dismissed, if not outright bullied by the rest of the family, but when shit starts hitting the fan, she steps up, takes charge, and does what she needs to do to keep the kids safe. It was nice to see this character everyone underestimated prove that she could be a strong and capable leader. She's someone that I'm looking forward to seeing more of, so that means that she'll probably be one of the first to die in Chapter 2 so we can develop other characters instead. Oh well. Maria was a slow burn character. For the first half of the story, I was walking a fine line between kind of liking her and finding her annoying, but between the relationship with her mother and just her overall creepy factor, she became one of the most fascinating characters in the game. They say in the story she's probably just going through a phase, but the complete change in voice and mannerisms made it seem more like she was being possessed by Beatrice, and like Badler, the reader starts to have conflicting feelings about her. Is she just being a creepy kid obsessed with witches, or is she actually possessed? And with the knowledge Maria has about the occult and witches, I think she's going to be a key character in solving the epitaph. But enough about the characters. You want to hear my theories on solving this mystery. The only problem is there are so many questions with no clear answer. Who killed the 6 people in the storage shed? Who killed Ava and Hideyoshi and how? Is the legend of the gold real, and if so, where is it? Is there a 19th person hiding on the island? Is it Beatrice? Who or what is Beatrice? Right now, I'm working under the assumption that solving the epitaph and finding the hidden gold is the main mystery to solve, and once we figure that out, the other pieces will fall into place. In terms of the more abstract mysteries, like the existence of magic and witches, I don't have definitive proof to confirm or deny them. I'm sure the pieces to solve the puzzle are already there, but I can't make use of them until I can establish a solid framework and learn the rules of the world. As for the murders, I think this will be somewhat easier to make theories about. There's 2 basic questions in regards to the victims. 1, were they murdered by a 19th person or one of the original 18? And 2, if it was a 19th person, was this person Beatrice or a human? I'm of the opinion that there is no 19th person, and that one of the 18 is the murderer, maybe even more than one if some people are working together. I think the thing that makes me lean towards it being a human is that Beatrice herself never physically appeared. She was mentioned as showing up at the end when Maria ran to greet her, but her only legitimate appearances are during the post-game sections, which is separate from the main story. The fact that Badler is so adamant that a human culprit was behind everything makes me think there's more to this than just a witch did it. And I mentioned it a few times during my playthrough, but whys exist always in quotations when they talk about Beatrice. I doubt that was an accident, as it seems everything is written in a very deliberate way, so I feel like this is an important point. I think what Jessica said shortly before she died in the tea party is going to be really important to solving the mystery of Beatrice. We didn't want to face reality, so we gave in to the witch. So does that imply that the murders were really done by humans? And then there's the post-tea party section that muddles things even more. Now we have other witches introduced to the story, including Berncastle, giving us hints on how to defeat Beatrice, but also saying she's not necessarily on our side. I'm assuming Beatrice can either jump between alternate realities or loop time to repeat those 2 days over and over until either Battler admits witches exist or someone solves the riddle of the epitaph. But again, this means I had to accept that witches are real in this universe, and then I get confused all over again. So the underlying question is, does Beatrice actually exist in physical form? For now, I'm going to say no. Maria states multiple times that she met Beatrice and was given physical items, such as the letters and an umbrella, and talked to her when the massacre happened in the parlor. I believe someone disguised as Beatrice met with her, and Maria wanted so bad to believe it was the witch that she accepted it wholeheartedly. We've seen that Maria can be very naive and quick to accept what other people tell her. Okay, so now let's break down the actual murders, and I'll give my thoughts on how I think they could have actually been done by humans. The first Twilight. Shannon's quote in the tea room about how it didn't hurt when she died could imply 1. She didn't die at all, or 2. She was knocked out or poisoned and then butchered after. If we imply the bodies in the storage room were all killed or even just knocked out by something slipped into their food or drinks, that leads me to believe it would most likely be one of the servants. However, the fact Ava and Hideyoshi just happened to not be there is pretty suspicious, but I feel like that's a red herring as it would be too easy to suspect them. Also, there's the fact that the majority of the bodies had their faces mutilated beyond recognition. It's mentioned that Kinzo has multiple servants that we don't ever see. Is it possible one of their bodies is hidden somewhere on the island and that the killer can use it to replace the bodies found in the storeroom? All they'd have to do is switch the clothing. This would give the killer the ability to fake their own death and provide a body for the rest to find. Also, a body can be reused. The characters make a big show of sealing up a murder scene so as not to disturb the area. It wouldn't be that hard to get back into the shed and take one of the bodies of someone already dead to make it seem like another person has been killed, when in fact only one had. Also, is Nanjo in on things? He claims the people we found are dead, but as he's the only doctor and the other characters take him at his word, he could be working with someone or multiple people to give a false narrative. I believe Shannon wasn't actually killed as she was the only servant other than Goda among the bodies, and I don't believe Goda would be in on the plan as the other servants don't seem to like or trust him, so I believe he actually died. And she may be behind some of the other deaths. Second Twilight. This one is tough as it seems to be a pretty airtight locked room murder with all characters' whereabouts accounted for, assuming that my theory about one of the bodies in the shed being a decoy so a person we assume is dead is able to move around is wrong. The only thing I could think of is the killer is still hidden in the room and assumed the other characters would be so shaken up that they wouldn't take the time to look for them, but I admit that this is pretty flimsy reasoning. The only other explanation I can think of is that Ava killed Hideyoshi and then herself, but why? And if so, where did she get the stakes from? This is the one that I'm most stumped about. The fourth and fifth Twilight. Something I didn't consider before, but maybe Canon quote-unquote killed himself, assuming he actually died. Once again, Nanjo was the one who claimed Canon died, but we didn't actually see his body. Why he would do this, I'm not sure. Could it have to do with him claiming that he's no longer furniture and making his own choices to go out by his own hands? But like I said, maybe Canon and Nanjo are in cahoots, and Canon never actually died. As for the body found in the boiler that is assumed to be Kinzo, the only defining feature of the body was his polydactyl toe. But didn't people say that it's hereditary in the Ushiromiya family? Who's to say it wasn't someone else and that Kinzo isn't still alive? The Massacre. Okay, so this locked room mystery is a little easier. All you would need is a master key, and assuming one of the dead but not really dead servants, or even someone who stole the master key off one of the dead bodies, they'd be able to get in and out of the room and kill everyone. Maria would be easy enough to manipulate because it's been said over and over again how trusting she is. Quick note, funny how Genji said how the phones weren't working and now they magically are? Does this mean he was lying from the beginning? And if so, why would he do that? As for why their faces were mutilated, maybe it's to cover up the true cause of death. I find it hard to believe they died by a stake to the leg or ankle. Those were inserted after to play into the epitaph. As for what made Natsui leave the room, I'm guessing the note mentioned something that made her feel like she had to lock the children in the room to keep them safe. And the fact Natsui was killed by a gun bolsters my theory even more that this is a human, because yes, you could argue Beatrice could have taken control of Natsui and made her shoot herself, but I'm thinking it was one of the 18 assumed to be dead who had a gun. It was mentioned Kinzo likes guns, so maybe he had another one that only certain people, like say a servant, would know about. And here's another small detail that I mentioned multiple times throughout my playthrough, the use of the word makeup to describe the blood and gore. Just like the quotation marks around exist in relation to Beatrice, that word choice seems deliberate. Is it implying that these bodies are just made to look dead? And multiple characters use the term, not just Badler. This bolsters my theory that at least some of these bodies are fake. So TLDR for who I think the murderer is. I believe the killer is one of the original 18 characters, potentially a few characters working together, most likely servants, either using an unknown body or using the so-called makeup to fake their deaths with Nanjo in on the act to provide credibility. I assume the servants, with the exception of Goda, were all working together to claim the gold so they could no longer be furniture and start a new life, with the exception of Genji, who would only try to solve the riddle because his master asked him to take part. As for how everyone ended up dead at the end anyway, is something I still need to find a reason for. And of course, there's 100 other things I haven't even mentioned. How did Kinzo leave his room? Was he already out of his room before the receipt was placed? But then we'd have to conclude that Natsui never had the conversation with Kinzo, so could we be dealing with unreliable narrators? Who left the note on Kinzo's desk? I think it was Maria. If Beatrice didn't write the letters, who did? If Beatrice isn't real, why do multiple characters see the golden butterflies? And just everything in general about the tea party. I know I've barely scratched the surface of this mystery, but there is so much to cover and so little time, so I will have to wrap it up for today. Anyway, those are some of my thoughts and theories for episode 1 of Umineko. I hope you liked the video, and if you want me to do discussion videos like this for future chapters, please consider giving this video a thumbs up so that I know you liked it. Thank you so much for watching, and look forward to Chapter 2 of Umineko coming this Friday. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Nana, Sparky, iCognito, Matt Goldsmith, Harry Gazif, and Asborn Kennedy.